Thank you, and thank you, H, for your statements this morning. There is a lot to discuss here this morning, so let's just get right into it. Let me ask first, Mr. Alexander, on the timeline that you have here. May 18 is the end date for the Army Corps Power Restoration Mission. So it concludes at that point in time. 98.44% of the folks having power there is good, but for the 22,900 who are without, I would imagine that they look at that date and say, wait, you can't leave us. Is there any consideration of an extension of this mission, any need for it to be extended?
You know, ma'am, I believe that all options were looked at. The Unified Command Group, they deliberated. The gentleman to my left actually sits on that body. Our authority to be there rests with FEMA and our resources. So we will do whatever the mission is, but we right now have been told at midnight on the 18th we will transition orderly with FEMA, our lines that we're working on and the material that we have, and replenish their inventory as well.
Well, let me ask about the orderly transition, and this may be directed to either you, Mr. Alexander, or to Mr. Higgins. Big story not too many weeks ago about the raid, I guess it was in January, so a couple months ago now, of a PREPA warehouse at the Palos Sector Power at the power station, where the rebuilding materials were seized. So we've had a lot of discussion. You've mentioned the inventory of the material purchases, but recognizing that that was one of the initial limiting factors in restoring the electric grid, because you had supplies that were being requested in other parts of the country for other hurricanes. So you had a supply issue at the time. We've obviously worked to address that. Then you have a very serious incident there in January where the material are secured. So now you're saying you're going to be doing an orderly transition. Can you give us that assurance that we really do have the materials that are needed, and what that will entail when you move on and the work remains?
Ma'am, I'll start off. You know, we'll conduct an audit, an inventory of the material that will be turned over to PREPA, again, to replenish stocks that were consumed during the response, and then the material that they still need to complete the mission.
How much is outstanding, and do you have a sense in terms of what is needed to complete?
On what we need to complete? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we're down to one point something percent till we hit 100%. I don't have the actual count for number of poles, transformers, conduit, et cetera.
I guess where I'm going with my question is whether or not we are still in a situation where we have a shortage of the material for the completion. You're suggesting no, because we've got to about 98%.
Material is no longer a limiting factor. Okay. It wasn't initially, because they're literally, in many cases, the material wasn't there. It had been consumed in the previous storms. It was coming straight off the manufacturing line, and then there are some unique specifications, that apply solely to Puerto Rico.
Okay, Mr. Higgins, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Mr. Alexander has correctly stated that material acquisition is no longer a big picture problem. All the materials are either on the way or on the island or have already been deployed. There could occasionally be a localized problem where a material isn't available to a crew at a particular time, but that's more of a matter of getting it to them, getting it from central to regional warehouses and out to a crew. The important thing going on now with the Army's mission ending is the assumption by PREPA of the logistics operation that the Army has capably and admirably performed over the last many months. So now we're in the process of PREPA's material acquisition people taking over the inventories, all the material that the Army has acquired for this, taking over the replenishment of future materials, receiving the materials that the Army, quote unquote, borrowed from PREPA, and in addition, being prepared, fully prepared to operate the logistics and material activities in a way that supports continuing restoration or continuing and the ongoing and soon to be undertaken recovery.
And you're prepared to take that up?
Well,
on
we're
the
still,
18th of May?
it's going to be a challenge, and we're probably going to get some help via the FEMA for that, but our people feel they are ready, and the FEMA is going to give us some additional augmentation as we go through that transition.
Well, I guess recognizing that May 18th is coming up like next week, we sure want to know that you really are ready and that it's not, that you're not still kind of working through things. That is next week. So if there are things, if there are steps, if there's anything that needs to be done on the outside looking in to help facilitate that, we would certainly hope that you would make sure that that is known.
We feel that we are ready to take this task on, and the help will make sure that we are ready. I don't doubt that we'll have some growing pains. This is a massive effort, but we are ready to take the task.
I understand that, sir, and I appreciate it, but I also think that for those that have been living with great uncertainty about their power generation since these hurricanes, these 22,900 that are still without, when they hear you say that there's going to be continuing growing pains, that must be really tough on them.
Yeah, I completely agree with your comment, Madam Chairman.
Senator Heinrich.